Welcome to Everyday Ethics, everyone. I am not in the best of moods today. I'm a little bit tired, and Persephone, I guess, is going to help me work through that. And we're going to put on a good show for you today. Remember, we love super stickers, we love super chats, and we love your comments, so please bring them. Thank you very, very much.
Uh, I might make things worse.
Oh,
I might,
no.
I might make things worse. I'm just putting it out there. Um, so I don't have any specific questions, but there is something that I want to discuss that I have been seeing recently
Okay.
from quite a few people.
All right.
And you and I have spoken about this a couple of times about how sometimes people let their emotions get the best of them. Even people who are principled and who understand objectivist ethics, they do sometimes let their let their emotions guide them perhaps more than they should.
Okay.
So I was reading a post today from someone, and it was quite a long post that had quite a lot of justification till right at the end where he stated his position.
All
And to
right.
me, this post read not like he was firm in his principles, but more like he'd started from a place of this is the outcome that I want, and then had tried to work backwards. So instead of saying this is what the principle requires, he started from the position of this is the outcome that I want. And he had tried to work backwards to find a principled way to achieve the outcome that he wanted. Understand what I'm saying?
I understand it perfectly well. Yeah. People start with a conclusion and then try to find reasons for it. It's called rationalizations. Yeah.
Yes. So the person who I'm speaking about, like I know that he wasn't doing this in a dishonest way.
Okay.
I know that he was being honest in the way that he was constructing this argument. How do you catch yourself rationalizing in real time? Because
In real time, it might be hard, but the thing is it's got to be a commitment to honesty. And I was just talking to my friend Subby about this. Like, I always ask myself if I'm behaving correctly. What did I do wrong? How did I contribute this to the situation? What could I have done differently? Am I right in this situation? And I do the same thing in regard to reasoning. Am I actually paying attention to facts? But it has to be an internally generated thing, and it has to be honest. And the example we have is there's a woman that is an objectivist, and you know she this morning, responded to something that Mark Pellegrino wrote and said, this is very disappointing, or people never fail to disappoint. Instead of just stating why she disagrees, she did that. So then she came on to the show. Jim Valiant and I were debating, and she says, this is ridiculous. Instead of saying, I disagree and here's why. Now, here's the thing. For 2 days now, people that ought to, claim to share a viewpoint with me in terms of general principles, right, is what happens, they come in and tell me I'm out of my fucking mind. They tell me I'm an idiot. I'm ethically challenged. I'm being, Mark's post is disingenuous. There's always some underlying motive. If you think it's wrong, just show where it's wrong. I'm pretty good at not letting things bother me, but I'm still a human being and I'm not on a lot of sleep. The country's at war. That's taxing. We've got a president who has shown no interest in constitutional norms or anything else. That's taxing. And then when we're during a debate, a very tense, a very focused debate that I'm having with Jim, we end up having, the woman comes on and this is ridiculous. You're completely minimizing me. You're minimizing my thinking. You're minimizing my arguments. You're minimizing the show, everything. And I got aggravated and I snapped at her. And I feel bad because, and this is what I mean by reflecting afterwards, because I didn't have to snap. I didn't even have to respond. I could have just asked her to be nice and make an argument. I got aggravated. And once I thought about it for a little while, once I cooled down, I went and I apologized and I explained to her. Now, whether she's going to accept my apology or not, I don't know. And it ultimately doesn't matter. My point is, I was wrong. It's like, look, you may think I'm wrong about something. That's fine. I've been wrong and I'll be wrong again. But to insult my intelligence, to insult my character because you happen to disagree with me, I mean, anybody that knows me, like if you ever watched me debate, do I seem like somebody whose arguments aren't well thought out? Persephone, I mean, how much stuff did I send you today? Before I knew we were going to have this debate, I was going to talk about Iran. I mean, it was a monumental amount of stuff on the history of Iran, the history of the conflict, the history of Islam, the history of Sunni, history of Shia, history of the conflict, history of radical Islam, history of terrorism. I mean, it's a monumental amount of stuff that I'm sifting through and reading in preparation. And then to have somebody try to dismiss me, but this is ridiculous. It can get annoying at times. But the thing to do when I get annoyed is to reflect. And this is what goes back to your point, is how do you stop yourself? You have to check your mind, check your thinking, and see, is this worth getting upset about? What am I doing here? Have I been too combative maybe in this whole thing? Have I been less than reasonable with people myself? I don't know how many people do that, but I do it. Now, Akira Felix says, after 2 days of being told you're a moron without giving a rational reason, how do you expect me to react? Obviously, I can take so much. I sympathize with that. I do, because it does get taxing. It's a bit much. You're making rational arguments to the people who are supposed to be the most rational. And the best that they have is, this is a big disappointment. This is ridiculous. One guy said, it seems people have lost their fucking brains. But there's no argument there. None. So one of the standards in objectivism, that's the standard go-tos. You're a rationalist. You're an evader. You're not being ethically, you're not being ethical in your arguments here. You're being dishonest. People, it's possible that somebody's intelligent, honest, reasonable, and has come to a different conclusion than you. You don't know what, there could be facts missing. Something might not be weighted properly. It doesn't mean somebody's dishonest. If you assume that anybody who disagrees with you, that they must be dishonest in some way or engaging in rationalism or something else, then you believe you are omnipotent. Or I'm sorry, you're omniscient. You're infallible. I'm sorry, folks. You are not. You are not infallible.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I said the post that I read today, at no point did I say I think he's being dishonest, I think he's whatever. I just Anyway. So, I mean, what's brought this all about is the war, right?
Yes.
And people saying the war is right. What I'm seeing a lot is the war is right, is correct, is moral. So the principle
Okay, I just want to say something. I want to interrupt you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's necessary.
Also, why can anybody else?
I want to tell you something. Hold on. So the woman thanked me for my apology and accepted my apology and says she understands. So kudos to her. I think that we do need to be able to have these disagreements without it turning into a hate fest. Yes. And I really appreciate it. And I just want to tell her that. So go ahead and make your point, but I do want to respond in real time.
Okay. What was my point? Oh, the war is correct. So the process doesn't matter.
Yes.
And to me, that sounds the same as saying, well, I knew he was guilty, so like conducting a warrantless search is fine.
Persephone, Subby right now has got to be jumping up and down on the couch in the other room. Because when after before in the hour before we came on here, while I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be getting work done. So let me just tell you something. My day's been so chaotic. I haven't worked out. I haven't showered, and I haven't done 3 reports that I got to do. And now I got to crunch all that into the 2 hours before before 5 o'clock. So I was talking to Subby about this, and Subby actually made this point that, you know, if you have a warrantless search, you can't just say because I knew the guy was guilty, it was okay. Those processes are there for a reason. Okay, now you may disagree, and that's fine, but don't tell me I'm an idiot because that's my perspective,
Yeah.
right? Show me I'm wrong. Show me why it's justifiable in this case. And, you know, it was good to have the debate with Jim today because Jim will do that. Jim comes out and he makes his argument. I think he was wrong. I think I won the debate. He probably thinks he's wrong. I'm wrong, and he won the debate. There's probably 95% of the people who tuned in probably have the same position they had going in, right? But we were able to have a civil, spirited debate, and that's what people should be able to do.
Yeah. So basically, made a couple of notes today, and they're all just a bit disjointed, but they all are sort of on the same train, right? What is happening right now with the people that are making posts and saying, well, the war is moral, the war is whatever, and then anybody who doesn't agree is an idiot, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of notes, and we spoke about this earlier. Anybody can hold a principle when it costs nothing, right?
Yes.
And I had said to you earlier that what did I say to you earlier? Man, I made such a good point, and I can't remember what
You
it
did.
was.
I don't know. I'll answer Mr. Deagle. I've offered to debate your own, and he said he's busy right now, but he'll get back to me when he has a chance.
I remember what my point was.
Was it
I
about your
said
own?
no, it was not.
Oh, hell. Hold on.
Okay, while Michael puts his cat ears on. How's everyone doing today, guys? No,
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hold on. Talk.
Oh, no. I can hear myself coming through through your speakers.
Yeah. So now,
Welcome to what usually happens in the pre-show, guys.
the something's not. It's not working now. Plugged into here. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you, but I can also hear myself.
All right. Well, that's not good. Hold on. Let's let's.
No, now you're muted. No, oh dear. Oh dear.
Tell a story.
So I spend so much time paying attention to American politics that today my friend said, "Did you hear what the president said about Trump?" And I was like, "No." So apparently our president, our South African president, has been talking endless amounts of shit about Trump. Yeah. Michael, just put your other headphones on. No one will blame you.
I don't think so. I think it's fine now. Can you hear yourself
Okay.
still?
No, now I can, now it's fine. Now it's all
right.
fixed.
Okay.
I vaguely remember what my point was before this whole exciting interlude.
You had an exciting interlude?
This was an exciting interlude. Um, I'm
I was
always
just
talking
going
to
to say that.
myself.
I was just going to say that. Your point, what your ultimate point is that you're seeing a lot of people who are willing to sever their principles when it's convenient. That is what I think you were talking about. And you went to people in South Africa for some reason. I don't know why we're talking about
Oh,
South Africa, but
I was telling a story, because you were busy fighting with your headphones, and I was just telling a story that happened to me today. I pay so much attention to American politics that today, when my friend who's also lives in South Africa was like, "I can't believe like our president's gonna end us up in a war." I was like, "What happened?" She goes, "Have you not heard him like just endlessly talking shit about Trump?" And I was like, "No, I don't pay attention to South African politics." Um, so my point that I made to you earlier was that anybody can hold principles when they're easy, right? If it costs you nothing. And I think what's happening right now with a lot of people is that the outcome of holding to a principle is uncomfortable because they the Iranian regime is evil. We want that to be gone. But the principle is that you can't just violate the constitution, right? Holding to a principle is easy, but if it has an outcome that you don't like or that you're uncomfortable with, which
yeah.
is, maybe not doing what's been done, then they don't know how to sit with the discomfort of an outcome that they don't like just because they're holding to a principle.
So uh, it's interesting that you say that. So the person who shaped most of my thinking when it comes to the Constitution. I read a book called "Restoring the Lost Constitution" by Randy Barnett, and it really I found it to be very quite compelling. And he made the point that if you don't find that sometimes going by the Constitution is going to lead to results you don't like, you're not being honest with it. Because it's going to. Antonin Scalia once said, for instance, and I don't really want to hone in on the Constitution stuff. I've been arguing about it all day. But Antonin Scalia said that he's very much opposed to flag burning. He would like to see people locked up for it. But unfortunately, the Constitution doesn't allow it. And so, hey, and so, that's a very important what you said. So this to me, like this is, God, I don't know how much I want to get into this on this show, but this guy in the comments here, he calls himself Hank Reardon, which to me is the ultimate irony in regard to the debate earlier. He said Michael ignored this entire debate, the importance of ideas in history. No, I didn't. Now, you can disagree with me. That's fine. But then he goes into just restating stuff. The Iranian regime is jihadist and openly wants to destroy Israel and the U.S. You're ignoring the overwhelming evidence that Iran has an advanced nuclear program. If they want to destroy America and have the means to do, like, he just, like, how do you think? I don't. I get confirmation bias, and I get the idea that you see what you want to see sometimes. What I don't understand, and I have a really hard time with it, and I want to tie this to ethics. It's that how do you watch me argue and come to the conclusion that I've ignored ideas in history, or that I ignore this, or whatever, or that I'm not well informed on the topic? I don't get that because there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that what you're saying is false. And the reason I say this applies to ethics, long ago, I remember 2000 and maybe two, I first met Brent McCall, and he and I were having a discussion, not a debate, just a discussion. And I said to him, these guys in here, the inmates, they always complain about they should have this, they should have this. I said, I understand that I would very much like a swimming pool here that I could dive into every day, and I would appreciate it if the prison system applied me with prostitutes. That doesn't mean they should do it. And Brent said, see what he said, well, Mike, you've been able to distinguish the difference between what you want and what you should have. And my point is, it's about being objective when you're being ethical, is that you want to think about all factors, take everything into consideration, everything relevant as you make your decision, and actually assess what's in your own interest. And for somebody to make that comment, it just tells me that this is not the thought process that you're going through. You came into this debate today with one set of views. You left with the same views. You didn't consider anything that I had to say, but that defeats the point. And I have a strong suspicion about why this is the case, and I may end up doing a video for it on the Rational Egoist. Matter of fact, I'm pretty confident I'm going to. But and I'll give a quick hint to it. ARI said so is not an argument. If you've spent 20 years watching videos from ARI, and that is where every point of your argument stems from, you're missing out. And I haven't. I have not done that. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. And I'm not saying that their arguments aren't solid. What I'm saying is Ayn Rand gave very good advice in Philosophy Who Needs It. You need to hear contrary arguments. So, for instance, Persephone, Ayn Rand vastly criticized Immanuel Kant. I didn't just sit back and say, oh, wow, this Immanuel Kant seems like really a bad philosopher and a bad person. I ordered his main work, The Critique of Pure Reason. I read it twice. It was torturous. Hardest book I've ever read because it's German sentences, very difficult to know even what the hell he's talking about. Read the whole thing twice. Then I had a dictionary of philosophy. So I went and read the section on Immanuel Kant. I've read the section on deontological ethics because I wanted to learn. I wanted to hear opposing arguments. All the early economists that I read all criticized John Maynard Keynes. But how the hell did I know if they were accurately capturing Keynes's thought? So I had Subby send me the general theory of employment, interest, and money so I could read it for myself because I wanted to understand it. I still disagree with it, but I understand it. I've always been willing. When I went out and bought myself a copy of The Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater, I also bought The Conscience of a Liberal by Paul Krugman. I've read so many critiques of Ayn Rand that it would make your head spin. Because it's important to understand opposing viewpoints. It's important to get different information. When you have all your information siloed to you from one source, you're missing out, and I don't care if the information is accurate. You need to be willing to branch out and see other things. And the application to ethics is you need to consider alternative points of action. You need to consider other people's points of view when you're dealing with them. And you need to consider where you might be wrong. Because you might be.
So it's really funny that you bring up deontology. So when I was looking at when I put the transcript of the debate into my AI, and they said that you were arguing deontologically within the objectivist framework, that the process constraint is non-negotiable regardless of outcomes. And I just found that really funny.
So, look, I'm just going to share something from this guy, Nick Johnson. He said he listened to the thing. He said, only heard James opening Sally, and it was pretty impressive, but I couldn't stomach the Lieb right now. His offense against common sense is too much. Like, how do you not see that that's offensive? How do you not see that that is insulting? And by the way, it's not an argument. And this is my point. So do these people think that when objectivists summarily dismiss constitutional arguments, when they summarily just insult people who disagree with them, that you're making objectivism appealable? Or appealing, rather? Akira Felix engages in rational discourse every day. He's done it with me. He's disagreed with me. He disagreed with me today. Do you think by telling him how stupid he is without making an argument that you're appealing to somebody, that actually somebody's going to find you enticing? That's not logic. You know, one of the best things, Harry Binswanger I had a debate with Mike Humer, the philosopher. He's an intuitionist, and he and I debated the objectivist ethics. I think I won the debate. I think I beat him on logic, but I also think that I was a dick in the debate. Now, just to be fair to myself, let me just give you some background. So, going into this debate, first of all, I was told that this is the guy. If you want to debate an opponent of objectivism, this is the guy. And I was fresh, 2 months out of prison. No, 3 months out of prison. I was excited and I was amped up for this to debate, right? I'm going to debate this guy that is so logical, so impressive, and I knew I could beat him. I read his arguments. So my adrenaline was up. Okay, I was also just coming off maybe the worst stomach bug I've ever had in my life. I was doing the debate in an uncomfortable position at Melissa's house where it was not my normal place. I didn't have a comfortable seat. Everything was all screwed up. And I was very amped and I was aggressive in the debate. And so Harry Binswanger afterwards reprimanded me for it. Now, I could have said, well, fuck him. You know what I mean? But I took his advice. I apologized to Mike Humer. And because I apologized, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe he would have done it anyway, but I debated him again and I interviewed him on my show. My behavior was the problem and I was willing to accept criticism and accept it. Like, if I kept doing that approach to debating, I wouldn't be able to get people on the show.
No. I'm trying to figure out how anyone could say that your arguments are not common sense, or that, like, I get how someone could disagree with you, but to say that to say that your arguments are stupid or not common sense or that they're not logical, I I don't understand how anybody could say that, because it doesn't make sense to me. I like argue the point like the way that James did. Um, James came at this from sort of a moral angle, and you came at it from a process angle. And I understand that. I get that. And it's where you and Mark differ as well. I get that. And I can see both sides of it, but you can't just say because I prefer the moral angle of, well, this regime is evil and therefore needs to be toppled. Like, fine, that's fine. But you can't then turn around and go, but because you think that the government needs to be held, not accountable. What's the word that I'm looking for? Because
Compatible?
there's a process that needs to be followed.
Yeah.
You can't say that just because I say that there's a process that needs to be followed, and if they don't follow this process and you say it's fine now because it's a regime that I believe is evil, then when they do it again for a different regime, then you're going to turn around and say, oh no, it's a problem. If you were okay with it now, with them ignoring the process, then when they do it again for something that you don't agree with, then you have no leg to stand on.
So, like, thinking about what I'm thinking about, like, I'm tearing up thinking about this. So, I'm going to share it. In prison, when you get into debates, I've debated with inmates. You often have arguments with staff. You have arguments with other inmates, and not always debates. And I remember thinking in prison that I could not wait to get out of prison. Obviously, for all the reasons, but one of the reasons was I could not wait to find a community online of objectivists who would engage in rational discourse. I couldn't wait to actually talk to people who understood A is A, understood a syllogism, didn't use emotion, didn't engage in insults. I could not wait. I was so excited to get out here and to get on Facebook and to get on X and to see the very people who claim to be pinnacles of rationality resort to saying this isn't common sense instead of making an argument, or saying this is ridiculous, or this is disappointing, or this guy's a fucking moron. Make your case. It's so depressing to me that this is what it is. because I really expected something different. I really, and why shouldn't I expect the people who have studied and read and digested Ayn Rand to behave better than prison inmates? Why shouldn't I expect that?
I mean, you should
But
you should be
but I'll
able
tell
to.
you, I should. But my expectations were by and large greatly overly optimistic. Greatly, especially because I'm somebody that will debate virtually anybody. If you think I'm dumb, if you think I lack common sense, prove it. Here's the thing: nobody's been able to. Nobody. I get a lot of people on Facebook that tell me how stupid I am and how I don't know what I'm talking about. You know who doesn't tell me I don't know what I talk about? The economists, philosophers, and professors that I've debated. None of them. The people that I've interviewed, the experts on Friedrich Hayek, experts on Milton Friedman, experts on Ludwig von Mises, experts on Ayn Rand, none of them, not one has ever told me I lacked common sense or I was stupid. Never. I didn't know
It's
Akira was rude to Mark, but Mark, obsession with debating Greg. So there's a few reasons, and I'll put them out there, and then I'm going to have to wrap up because I do have to shower and get to work. But there's a few things. One, I'm good at it, and when I'm debating, I get a feeling of mastery. It's when I feel most at home with myself. It's when I feel most alive. I just feel like I can't explain. I can only compare it to Howard Rourke's description of building something as the combination. I can't remember exactly what it was, but Indian torture and sexual, whatever the climax all at once or some such thing. That's one reason. Another reason, because I enjoy discussing ideas. Another reason is because I think it's important to get to truth. Sometimes it's because I'm fed up with people insulting me, and it's like, put up or shut up. It's not, Mr. Deagle, so it's not about, God, how do I frame this? People insult me all the time, and I generally, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. But when operating on a lack of sleep, when operating in a very stressful situation where people are going to die in a war, when it's being run by somebody that I think is less than competent and less than ethical, and then to be insulted not by a bunch of people that I think are scumbags or randos on X, but by the people from whom I expect better. For the people that while I was in prison I couldn't wait to get out in discourse with, to see them resort to "you're an idiot" as an argument, it's a bit much. And I don't disagree that I shouldn't allow it to bother me this much. You know what I mean? I shouldn't. I need to work on it. There's no doubt about that. I don't disagree with that. But I've met very few people in life that never get aggravated or never get upset when repeatedly insulted, especially by people whom they would have expected better from. Greg Lewis,
it
thank you for the $2, by the way.
it would be different if you were blatantly wrong and being insulted by dickheads. But when you know that you're not wrong, because that's the thing. You know that you're not wrong. You know that you've reached your conclusions not by the strength of your emotion, but by reason and by logic. And when you know that you've reached your conclusions by reason and by logic, for someone who should understand that to turn around and insult you and
And
not
and
argue with the reason or the logic and
and also, and Akira Felix says in the last 2 days he understood why it bothers me because it bothered him too. Yes, and here's the thing, right? Let me put it out there. People, they may think I'm wrong. I know I'm right. Right now, of course, somebody can know they're right and turn out wrong. I'm not claiming infallibility. I'm not claiming omniscience. But I told Akira Felix the other day that I have a hint of something, and I couldn't, that this is a parallel to something, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I've put my finger on it. This, to me, is the equivalent of all the objectivists who are now defending this war were arguing against. All the people who fell into this hole of just defending Trump no matter what and ended up turning themselves basically into pragmatists. They just keep defending him and keep defending him, and principles are out the window. That's the same sense I get in relation to defending this war. And I don't think it's going to end well for objectivists. The objectivists who are now dismissing the Constitution almost out of hand, not Jim. Jim didn't do that, but a lot seem to be. It's not going to end well because this war is not going to come on forever. There's going to come a time when you're going to appeal to the Constitution again. And when that happens, people are going to look at you and say, no. The same way that I currently look at the conservatives who my entire life advocated for constitutional originalism and now kicked it out the door to back Trump. The same thing is going to happen here. I can see it coming a mile away. The arguments for this war that they're using in general, they are not strong arguments. They are not consistent. I challenge anybody out there, not to a debate. You can do it in the sovereignty of your own mind. Take the arguments that you see being made for this war by objectivists, take them when they're written down and submit them to your AIs. And I'm not saying trust AI blindly. Assess the analysis. Give it to Grok. Give it to Claude. Give it to ChatGPT and tell it, assess these arguments for logic and accuracy and see what it says. Don't trust it blindly. Of course not. Weigh it. These arguments being made are not sound. Compare them to the arguments from 2 weeks ago from the same people who were arguing against ICE. It's not consistent on the one hand to argue that Trump is a dictator who's the head of the Gestapo. Not my word. Right? These people have argued that Trump is a dictator at the head of the Gestapo. Now you're arguing that it's okay that he ignores his constitutional duty and you're trusting him to execute a war. That's not a consistent argument. Jim Valiant never argued, by the way, that Trump was a dictator at the head of the Gestapo. Jim Valiant has been consistent all the way through. Okay? But I'm not maligning the people. I'm not saying they're liars. I'm not saying they're evading or engaging in rationalism. I'm saying I'm looking at the arguments and they're bad. They're not good arguments. It is as if there's a conclusion that's wanted and the reasoning is going towards it. It's the same thing I saw on the other side with the objectivists who support Trump. This is my view, but I'm not going to insult anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody what a jerk they are, or moron, or they're being disingenuous or dishonest. I'm willing to debate it rationally and logically, and that's why I'm passionate. But we've gone 9 minutes over when I couldn't afford to go a minute, so we're going to have to wrap up.
And discuss this exact same topic tomorrow because I have so many more things to say.
Okay. Quickly, Wednesday I won't be here. I'm going to New York, so I can't do this show Wednesday. I will be doing Capitalist Corner, though, on Wednesday, and hopefully everybody will come back tomorrow. Thank you. This has been really, for me, a venting situation. I'm distressed. I'm stressed out. I needed to get this off my chest in a good discussion. Thank you wholeheartedly, everybody, for taking the time to listen to me, whether you agree or disagree. And until tomorrow, be ethical. Thank you.